Hey everyone, and welcome to my tutorial. I do thank you for purchasing it, and we're going to work together to make a fabric mini album. This, well, it's not so mini. The cover is 10.5 by 10.5, so you will need 2 sheets of chipboard, 10.5 by 10.5. Our pages are going to be 10 by 10, so we will need 4 each 10 by 10 chipboard pages. This album does have chipboard as the pages. Alright, I am using a few different fabrics. I will start with my outside album. I'm using this pretty purple fabric that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. And then for my paper, I'm using Maja Designs. It's a combination of different pages. I just wanted to go kind of with that purplish theme. I'll list the materials or on the materials list that came with this, the PDF. I'll list all of the pages that I use. And right now I'm not going to go through the embellishments. We're first going to tackle getting the construction of the album done. On top of that fabric, I have a couple of more that we're going to use for the stitching of the spine, inside spine of our album. I have some canvas, and I'm going to hope that this shows up. I just have a lightweight canvas. It folds really easy. And then I have a heavier canvas that I'm going to use. And then I also have a light, I believe it's muslin. Muslin? I'm going to check, and I will have that on your materials list for sure. But it's just a real thin fabric that we also need. I do have one page. It's I use it on my Cricut. It's a really lightweight, they call it chipboard, but you know what you and I are used to, this is definitely not chipboard. If you don't have this, don't worry about it. You can use a thicker cardstock that you can get from Hobby Lobby or Michaels. You know, our normal cardstock, the colors that you get, the white, the black, blue, the color cardstock, not the design cardstock. I think it comes in 60 pound, 80 pound, and 110. And just get a heavier one, but we do need it to be flexible. Or you can also use, like if you're a fan of Graphic 45 or any of them, you can use the cover that it came with. And any design on it, it doesn't matter. We are going to cover this up with fabric, so no one will even see that. So you can use that if you don't have this really lightweight chipboard. And then we're also going to need some batting, which I just picked this up at Walmart. Okay, so let me set this aside, but I do want to start with our lightweight canvas. Now I have 4 pieces of white cardstock, and I have cut, I'm sorry, there's 5. I have 5 pieces of white cardstock, and I have cut them at 10 inch, which is the length of our page, and they're 1/2 inch wide. And these are going to be the gussets inside of our album, and I will explain more as we go. So set those aside and unfold your fabric. You can tell I've already been cutting on mine. And I think I already have a 10-inch. So we want 10-inch high. Yeah, there's a 10-inch mark. I'm just going to draw a straight line here. So we've got our height, and we want our fabric to be 2 inches wide. So I'm going to measure off 2 inches. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I know once you cut fabric and stuff, it gets all curved and everything, but we're just going to try and get it as close as we possibly can. So there's one, and I'm going to go by that line, 2 inches over. Mark that. There's 2. Mark that. And then we're going to take our scissors, and we need 5 of these. I'm going to finish mine in just a little bit. I just wanted to get you started on yours. So there's 1. 2. And as we're going through making this album, your fabric's probably going to fray a lot on the ends. Do not worry about that. It will be covered up. Alright, so I have 3. I'm going to go ahead and we need, excuse me, we need 2 more. And I've got a little stitch down here at the bottom that it came when they cut it out, so I'm going to get rid of that real quick so I don't accidentally include it. I guess it's when they were rolling it and unrolling it off that big square thingy. It has a bunch of holes in it, so I'm going to throw that part away. Let's see what we got. That's going to be too small. Alright, so we need 10 inches. Well, there we go. Huh, okay, that was 10 inches. How lucky did I get? 2 inches wide. Excuse me. Yeah, that one kind of missed it, but it'll be okay. Like I said, it does not have to be exact. Just try and get it the best that you can. And do not worry about your pencil marks being on these. They will also be covered up. Alright, so I have my 5 strips that are 10 by 2 inches. And I have my 5 white cardstock that are 10 by half of an inch. I'm going to take glue. I'm going to use this art glitter glue. Even though it's named art glitter, it does dry clear. Or you can use the Fabri-Tac glue. I'll probably use this on a bigger section. On this glue, it works really well. And what we're going to do is take one of your paper strips and one of your fabric pieces, And what we want is a 1/2 inch overhang. I'm sorry, a 1/4 of an inch. So we want to put our cardstock in the center, but we also want it to overhang by about a 1/4 of an inch. So since we cut our fabric at 10 inches, on this side we're going to have too much fabric. So we're going to cut that down, mark about a 1/4 of an inch from the top, and then just cut that down. And I do it this way. I know I could have cut it out 9.75 instead of 10 inches, but I want the ends to overlap by a 1/4 of an inch. So I'd rather do it this way rather than you'll end up trimming it because your fabric's always kind of wonky when you cut it out. So take your glue. I'm going to put it all down the side of the paper except for the very tips. That's gonna overhang on each side. We do not want glue on there. So we're going to start down. Oh, that thing's coming out like crazy. And then on this one here, I'm going to not have glue on that 1/4 of an inch overhang and just set it in the center of your fabric. And there we go. We have the overhang on both ends. So let's set that aside and grab another one. Make sure that the one end is a 1/4 of an inch over. Mark on this side. Dang, I keep losing my voice. 1/4 of an inch down, and we're going to cut that. We will add our glue. And place that right in the center. Move into our next one. Put our overhang, mark down from our paper 1/4 of an inch, cut that off. Add our glue. And place that right in the center with our overhang on each side. I got mine a little bit too much on one end. There we go. And then our next one. Ah, I forgot to cut it. Okay. Flip it glue side up so I don't make too much of a mess here. Alright, now the glue's on. Center that. And we still have our overhang. And we have one more. That one really came out wonky, didn't it? Mark down 1/4 of an inch from the tip of our paper. Cut that off. And then add our glue. And again, we don't want to go all the way to the tip with our glue that's overhanging. We only want to put it where the fabric's going to be touching. Alright. So we're going to take all 5 of those and set it aside. Let those dry. Now, on our album, we're going to take our 10 by 10 page. And what we do is, you can do 2 things, and I'll let you choose which option that you want. On our edges, you can either paint the edges, so you would paint outer edge, you would paint like 1/4 of an inch from top down, and then on the back 1/4 of an inch from the top down, all the way around, all 4 sides, white paint. Or you can take fabric. That's where I use this really light muslin. I'll get it eventually. Fabric. And I wrap every single edge of all 4 pages in the fabric. So what we need is to fold this out. Actually, I have a little section right here I'm going to start with. And what you need is 16 each, because we have 4 pages, 4 sides. So we need 16 that are 10 inches high, and we only need them a 1/2 inch wide. So it looks like I already have my 10-inch line here at the top. So I'm going to make my 1/2 inch mark. And then draw a line just like we did on our previous ones. This fabric is just folded over a little bit, so just ignore that. It will be a 1/2 inch by the time I get my scissors to it. My pencil to cooperate. And then a 1/2 inch from that line. And we go over and over until we have a total of 16 strips. So again, we need 16 that are 10 long, 1/2 of an inch wide, and then we're going to cut them out. So I'm going to go ahead and do all 16 of mine, and I'll be right back with y'all in just a minute. Alright, so I have mine cut out, and I have 4 of them here now. And I have one of my 10 by 10 pieces of chipboard, and I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to put it across the, let me put it on this side, the darker side, so you can see just one line across the top edge. Then I'm going to take my cutout fabric, and I want to lay half on the chipboard, half off the chipboard, because we're going to flip it over later and attach it on the other side. So So just press that in place. I'll flip it over in just a minute to show you exactly what I mean. And you can see there, half of my fabric is over the edge, but I need to go ahead and cut down the overhang on each side. Make that line up. There, can you see there? It's lined up completely, the fabric with the edge of the chipboard. On this side, we're going to put our glue again, just at the top edge. And then take that and flip it over. Make sure your corners are down. This one I went a little bit over, so I'm going to trim that down again. Get it as flush as I can. Alright, now we flip and do the next edge. All the way from one end to the other. We're going to put half of our fabric on here. Trim off the excess on our edges. A little stray thread there. I'm going to cut him off real quick. And then put glue down. And flip it over. And try and get your edges as clean as possible. Or your corners, sorry, not the edge. Well, the edge too, but if you have any threads poking out, you can put some extra glue and push them down, or take your scissors and cut it off. I prefer to, I'll just take some glue and cut that edge down. I got really tight on this one. Alright, move it on to the next side. Put our glue. Half of our fabric strip. Cut off the excess. My scissors do not want to cooperate. Like I said, get some sharper ones. Glue down the opposite side and flip that over. little extra glue on these corners. Make that as pretty as you can. And then our last side. One more edge and we'll be done with this page. Some strangling threads. I'm trying to get on that down. Usually you can just put some glue on the ends and just kind of pinch it together, and it'll make those ends very nicely. And we need to do this to all 4 of our pages. And what we're trying to do is, whenever we put our design paper on, it's going to go all the way to the edge of where that fabric is, and then when you're looking at it, all you're going to see is that pretty nice fabric edge as you're flipping through your album. So go ahead and continue to do your remaining 3 pages, and I'm going to continue with mine, and I will be back with y'all in just a moment. Okay, so I have all 4 of my chipboard pages done. I have all the edges covered. So we are going to set these aside for a moment and work again on our inner spine. Now I took that lightweight chipboard that I was telling you about, or you can use the cover of one of your paper pads, and I've cut it down 10 by 3 1/4. And we're going to start putting on these 5 that are going to hold our pages in place. So let me make sure, 3 1/4 by 10. Now what I want to do is, starting with our first one, we're going to take the left-hand edge of our cardstock and line it up with the left-hand edge of this cardstock. Of course, they're both 10 inches long, so we're going to line it up top to bottom, and then that's what we want. We want cardstock to touch the edge on both the top and the bottom, and we're going to glue that in place. Now we only want to put the glue on the back of the fabric, but only where that center paper is. So I usually like to take it, kind of make a U, cup it around, and then place my glue only on the fabric. And you can use your Fabri-Tac, or I'm going to use the same glue I have been using. So all the way down, only where that paper would be. Okay, now we're going to flip it over. And again, left side of this white cardstock to the left side of this. Line it up top and bottom, all the way to the left. And we're going to push that down and make sure it adheres. So what we're going to have is, we're going to have this flap here. You can see the edge. And then we're going to have our second flap kind of hanging out over here. Now, we're going to grab our next one. We're going to take this loose flap and just fold it over, and just find something you have on hand to just kind of keep it folded to the left. Just want to get it out of our way. Now we're going to, again, we want to put the left side of the paper all the way as close to the left to your next paper, but we need the width apart of a chipboard piece. So take one of your scraps from cutting your 10 by 10 or your 10.5 by 10.5, and we're going to put it down and push it all the way to that fabric, to our other piece. And then we're going to put the left side of the white paper all the way up against that chipboard piece. And your fabric is not going to be adhered to anything, it's just going to be kind of flapping up. And we want to do that, the top and the bottom, white paper, closest to the chipboard piece as you can get it. So flip over your fabric piece, cup it where your paper is in the center there, and we're going to start putting our glue down. Alright, we're going to get this little flap out of the way. I'm just going to use my ruler to hold it. Well, way to go, Michelle. Put our chipboard piece, and we want to push it all the way against that fabric, and then start laying this down. We want the paper, the white cardstock, up against this chipboard piece as much as you can on both the top and the bottom. So what I like to do is I push down with the glue plus towards the cardstock. So down towards the cardstock, down and towards the cardstock. Ooh, I got a little hump in mine. There we are. Mine got a little off in the center. So push that towards the cardstock. And what we created here is a little channel right in there where we're going to add our cardstock later. We're going to add it back in, our 10 by 10 pages. Looks like I'm a little crooked on this center here. Let me see if I can fix that. Alright, so take this last flap. We're just going to kind of get it out of our way for a little while. If it doesn't bother you, then that's fine. Take our next piece and put our glue on the back side, the fabric, but only in the center where that cardstock is on the other side. And I'm sorry if I say it over and over again. I just want to try and help you understand. So if you get it after the first time and it becomes monotonous, go ahead and fast forward. Alright, we're going to put in our chipboard piece. That's our spacer. Put in our cardstock right up to that chipboard piece. Also, top and bottom. So down towards the chipboard, down towards the chipboard. Get that glue to stick. Alright, we have 3 down and 2 more to go. So grab your next one. We'll get our glue. And also, if you have any questions, you have any trouble, you're more than welcome to email me. I'll be sure, and you'll have my email address on your PDF materials list. Alright, grab my little scrap chipboard piece, get that in place, put my cardstock all the way to that chipboard, and then lining it up top and bottom with the backer board, and then push towards the chipboard and down for it to adhere. And we have one more left. And we should have just enough room. Yes. So our last one. My spacer in there. This one's going to flop around on me. Push down and towards the chipboard. Alright, now we have all 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to hold our 4 pages in. And then this is your gusset. We got a 1/2 inch gusset in between each page. These outer flaps right here is what is going to adhere this whole thing to our album. Excuse me, I've got glue coming out there. Alright, now what we want to do is we are going to do some stitching, and I'm not sure if I can get my sewing machine on camera, but I'm going to go ahead and let you know what we're going to do, and then I'll go ahead and pause and see if I can get it on camera for you. What we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and draw it. On each 5 of our gussets, depending on how you want your album to be, you can do a zigzag stitch all the way down, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top here, and I am going to stitch all along the right hand side of that white cardstock all the way down. Now when I get to the bottom, I'm going to come across to the left and then go back up. So I'm going to try, like I said, and get my sewing machine into the camera. If not, I'm going to at least stitch it and show you what it is that I've done, and then I will be right back with y'all. Alright, so I have mine all stitched up. I did try and record on my sewing machine, but I don't have the right stand or equipment, and I just couldn't get it for you. But I did use my We Are Memory Keepers Stitch Happy. So I've got a pretty thick thread on mine, so hopefully you can see it well. As I stated before, I went down one side across, down one side across the bottom, and then back up the other side. Now the bottoms of mine, okay, I don't know if y'all can see that. I still need practice on that turning, especially with that machine. Sometimes I use my regular sewing machine, and I can handle it a little bit easier. I guess this one's harder because the thread is so thick. It actually will use a twine in it, and it shows up well, but it's kind of hard to control. If you do have trouble with your stitching, some of mine look better than others. I've got curves on some of them that I don't really care for, but yeah, it's a lot better than when I first started. You can take a piece of your cardstock and cut it and glue it down on top of there if you end up not liking your stitching. Don't throw out the whole thing just because your stitching is kind of messed up. For one, this is a handmade album, and whoever you give it to, I'm sure knows it's handmade and they will love it just the same. But if it really does bug you, which I have, one of them, the very first one I did end up putting paper because, yeah, it was like all over the place. Okay, so what we end up with is where we started, went down across and came back up. We have all these little threads that are hanging. So we need to get these adhered down. So we're going to flip it over, and you can see all of my stitches because I've got that really thick thread, which I'm hoping that'll also help me show you the next step. I've already done it with these two pieces. My very first one, you can see my stitching is behind it. So I'm going to move on to my next one. So flip it over from the back. And what we want, we have this stitch coming out the front. Now when you make a stitch in your sewing machine, one stitch, you have your bottom, your bobbin, and your top, and it flips over the thread and it makes a little loop. Now what you want to do is grab just a little needle and get inside that loop and pull it out. And what you're doing is this thread that's in the front, you're pulling it from the front to the back. So let me see if I can get mine close enough. Please don't get dizzy on me. Alright. So, like I said, here's my thread in the front. Whoops. Oh, come on. Here's my thread in the front. And I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to find that loop. Put my needle inside of it. And pull it towards me. If you could tell, it'll pull that from the front to the back. And we're going to do that on all of them. So I'm just going to move to the next one, find that loop, and pull that forward. There we are. And move down to the next one. I'm trying to keep it in camera for you. Mine's that thick thread, so it's a lot easier than using the regular sewing machine. We're just going to keep going down the line. And separate them. Okay, I'm on my last two. Alright, one more. Alright, so now I have all my threads are pulled back to the back part, and let me go ahead and zoom back out again. Whoops, sorry. Alright, now what we're going to, let me go a little bit more. I'm going to make y'all dizzy by the time I get this thing taken care of. Okay, we're going to take all of these threads and we're going to take some regular tape. I can find mine. I'm sorry I didn't pull it out ahead of time. And we're going to tape all of these down. And all this is going to get covered up later. There we go. Now we are going to grab our heavy canvas. We're going to set this aside for just a minute. And we need one piece, and it's going to cover the back and flip over onto the edges. So let's go with 10 10.5 inches tall, so we have room to curl it down over the top and the bottom. And then we want 3 1/4 wide, which will be the same width as our back piece here. The reason why I like to use a thicker canvas on the back is when you fold it over the top edge, to me it gives a better look to it. You can use this lighter canvas, which when I first started making my albums, that is what I used. But then after watching videos of other people doing it, I decided to go with the heavier canvas for this back part. So we are going to undo this. Wow. I got a lot more than I bargained for. Alright. I can tell already that when I bought that, it's kind of a crooked cut that they have on there, but let's go with, you know what, I'm going to make it 11, and if we have any excess, we can cut it off later. So let's do 11 inches high. And I want 3 1/4 wide. Alright, so I'm going to cut that one out. And we'll set all this excess aside. Okay. I've got a little, I'm going to straighten my bottom part up here. When I bought it, they cut it a bit crooked there. Okay. I'm just going to test it out. Yeah, it's the correct width. I have some overhang for the top and overhang for the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this down, and I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac. So we want to put it all over the back here. There we are. Put my lid on, that thing will leak forever. Okay. So we're going to put this down into center. And we're going to have an overhang at the top and the bottom. Try to make it about as even as you can. I'm going to flip it over and just press that down. Make sure it covers everything completely. Alright. Now, I'm going to start from the bottom first. So as you can see, this is where my stitches go across. And let me zoom in a little bit. I'll get y'all dizzy again. Okay. What I'm going to do is take my Fabri-Tac with the... We're going to put it all the way on the top edge and roll it down little bit by little. This stuff is so messy. So I'm just going to fold it over about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit less. Trying to get that glue to... I'm going to hold it for just a moment. And then we're going to put some more glue and fold it down again. And it's going to go over the edge of our paper. So let's put some more glue down. There we are. I'm just going to hold this in place a little bit. You'll see what I've done here. I folded it over and it goes to just meet the top of this bottom piece. Just holding it down till it adheres. There we are. Looks like I need a little bit more glue on this corner piece. I'm going to use this glue. I got a little stray thread right there that's kind of bugging me. I'm going to cut it. Alright, while that dries, you can see how it's kind of curled up there. We're going to go ahead and go with this. And I'm going to use this glue. So just fold that over once, about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to hold it in place so that glue adheres a little bit. Alright. Add some more glue, fold it over again, and what I'm make sure it goes over the edge of our paper, excuse me, of our paper backing. I'm just trying to get your roll as uniform as you can. And it's going to cover up Can we see there? There we go. See, it's just rolled over that top edge. You can tell from the side. If I can keep it in the video camera. And we're going to let that sit. I think I got a little thread wanting to come unraveled, so I'm going to just put a little bit of glue, or then again I'll cut it. Alright. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. I've got both my ends, and all that does is, this is going to be your inner spine to your album. So when you're looking, let me show you one that I've done already. Here we go. So this is the inner spine, and you can see how it folds over there. And what it does is, while your this outer spine is soft, and it just gives a nice clean look. There's the bottom. And this soft spine that I'm doing here, it also helps your pages to lie flat. This is the first one that I did that I was telling you I didn't like my stitching in the center. See here? On each page, I didn't like my stitching, so I put a little piece of cardstock inside of it. And see how the pages lay completely flat? Alright. I'm going to set this aside and let it dry. Don't put any clamps on it because it'll end up flattening your little curl that you made. If you are having trouble with it, I have seen people take a little bit of string and lay that on the fabric and roll up the string, and it makes it a little bit easier to help roll it up. So we're just going to let that dry, and then we're going to start putting in our, or we're going to do our front and back cover. And let me get everything together for that, and I'll be right back with y'all.